Are you also considering military force to annex and acquire Canada?
No, economic force. Because Canada and the United States, that would really be something.
President-elect Trump has been needling you a bit, calling you Governor Trudeau, talking about making Canada the 51st state. Did you have any interaction with him today?
No, not today. But that's not going to happen. Canadians are incredibly proud of being Canadian. One of the ways we define ourselves most easily is, well, we're not American. There is such a depth of pride that that's not actually an issue. What I think is happening in this is President Trump, who's a very skillful negotiator, is getting people to be somewhat distracted by that conversation, to take away from the conversation around 25% tariffs on oil and gas and electricity and steel and aluminum and lumber and concrete, and everything the American consumers buy from Canada is suddenly going to get a lot more expensive if he moves forward on these tariffs. And
I mean, I see this, it's so incredible. Ding, 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 ding. Okay.
Fantastic. I love it. I love it. Welcome, everybody, to the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello. Let's go into the breach on Thursday night, 9 o'clock Eastern time every week, unless one of us is sick or whatever. But that's rare.
Or
that
in
rarely
prison.
happens. or we end up in prison. But no, that's what he like. We're gonna talk about it more about Justin Trudeau, who ostensibly resigned, but Ezra Levant had a conversation with Charlie Kirk. I'm not sure if we have the clip. I'm going to find it. I hope I can. Where Ezra Levant saying that basically Parliament is dissolved. Now I don't know all the intricacies of Canadian governance. Okay, but evidently by him resigning for the next 90 days, he has more power than he's had in his term, and then Parliament convenes, something along those lines. But in the meantime, let me ask you this: Donald Trump is a skilled negotiator, dude. I can only imagine you, Mr. Pusillanimous, sitting in a room with Donald Trump trying to negotiate tariffs. Don't you get it? We have oil and gas, Justin. We have lumber. We make concrete. All right. If you want to play games with us, okay, guess what? We'll incentivize American manufacturers to do those things here. And you know what? The Canadian people are going to hate you even more, even though you are on your way out the door. But what a turd. That's the only, I'm sorry, Joe. This is the only way I could describe him. He's a turd.
Oh, he's a disaster. What he did to Canada in these 9 years, I'll be honest with you, it's going to take 2 decades to basically recover from. And interestingly enough, we have a clip of Pierre Poilievre. He's basically making a pitch against the liberal agenda. And the reason why I think he's doing that is they could win again. Keep this in mind. Canada controls the media more aggressively than the U.S. Now, obviously, there is X and Facebook. We're going to talk about that, too, I believe, is opening up. I think that's a great piece of information. I still don't trust Zuckerberg, but at the end of the day, he is opening up the platform. And that's good news, I think, for humanity in the sense that people are going to actually be informed. Right. But at the end of the day, listen, what if the liberals win again? You never know. I highly doubt that. I think Poilievre will probably be the prime minister. But at the end of the day, dude, he was there 9 years, and the damage is done.
Listen, everybody's talking about the powerhouse economically that Canada could be. Remember something, Joe. Canada, again, I can't give you the numbers. I can't cite the statistics, okay? But it strikes me Canada was a lot more powerful in the past than they are now. Remember, they do have lumber. They do have a tremendous amount of oil and gas. I mean, come on. They had, over there, my uncles, my mother's siblings went to Canada because that's where the jobs were. They worked for Ford and General Motors and Chrysler right over the line in Niagara Falls in Canada. Justin Trudeau, like you said, has wrecked it. But you know what bothers me? What bothers me, amongst other things, is I will never get out of my head when a gentleman, I don't know if he was a reporter or just a citizen, asked Trudeau in a press conference and said to him, goes, the Canadian people are suffering. and he cut the guy off, and he started to berate the guy for bringing up the suffering of the Canadian people, because do you want to know who's suffering? Do you want to know who's suffering? The people of Ukraine are suffering. No, the people of Ukraine are suffering. It's like, dude, that's your constituent. Supposedly that's your countrymen who you're supposed to govern and who ostensibly you're responsive to. You're yelling at him because he's talking about the pain and suffering of the people you claim to represent. Joe, I'm not. It's the most hateful thing amongst so many things that Trudeau has done. That's why I say good riddance. But it's the most hateful thing I saw him do was when he yelled at this guy. He had no place to do that, and that's the problem. That's the dripping with elitism, Joe, if you know what I mean.
I'll be honest with you. America should take a good, strong look, because globalists hate humanity. They hate humanity. Everything they touch destroys the middle class. It destroys. And I'm going to be truthful with you. People make these trade-offs in their head, whether it's for abortion, whether it's for gender ideology, whatever. But I got news for you. In the wake of the leadership of any globalist, you pick the person, you pick the country, you pick the state. We're going to talk about California as well.
Right.
It is an absolute wreck after they get done with it. And I got news for you. It is what it is. Rationalize it all you want. You're still standing amongst the garbage dump that they leave behind. They absolutely hate humanity.
You know, Giorgia Meloni, I'm paraphrasing her. She came out recently and she said, Elon Musk is a creator. George Soros is a meddler. And she's absolutely right. See, Elon Musk is trying to bring, look, I'm sorry. The guy's got a superior intellect. He sees things that other people don't see. The guy parallel parks a rocket back into that thing that it stands up on. I don't even know the name of it. Okay. And turns it off like a car engine. Okay. NASA couldn't do that in 70 years. And Elon Musk is doing it. Listen, he is a creator and he sees things. Now he sees things that we see. The difference is he's going to be able to go into the administrative state and see exactly what needs to be undone. Because I forgot who, Joe, I was listening to today talking about the administrative state. I was watching Tucker Carlson with Ryan.
I listened to about 50 minutes of that today as well. It was very good.
Yeah, Ryan made a good point. The whole administrative state is like, it's a web. It really is a web. It's one layer on top of each other, interweaved and everything else. Elon Musk is the guy who could get in there. Why? Elon Musk genuinely wants to see the American people thrive, along with people around the world. The problem with Justin Trudeau and his handlers, like George Soros, like Klaus Schwab, is like you just said. They want to subjugate humanity. I wish people would understand that would think about even voting for the left. The left is controlled by the oligarchs and some on the right. Some. Let's be fair about it, okay? But at the end of the day, you know, Justin Trudeau, like I said, good riddance, like you said. He's a globalist who hates humanity. Here, I got a good one for you. All right? Watch this.
Well, I watched his resignation speech this morning, and I thought, you know, I've never heard Justin Trudeau say a true word in his entire life. I'm a pretty astute clinician, and I can, if I pay attention, I can tell the difference between someone who's, you know, merely wrong and trying his best, and someone who just lies with every single breath. And he is definitely a person like that. Everything he does is an act. And his resignation speech was an act. You could tell because today he started out with the words, well, everyone knows that I'm a fighter and I don't give up. And I mean, Pierce, I don't know about you, but I can't imagine myself ever saying something like that in public. Who would say that?
I know.
I'm a fighter.
Especially as you're giving up.
Really?
Especially as you're literally giving up.
Well.
It's like, I quit,
Yeah,
but I'm
well,
not a quitter.
you know.
Yes, you are. You're literally quitting in front of our eyes.
Yeah. Well, and it's also the case that you saw in that opening salvo exactly his preoccupation with himself.
Yeah.
It's like, this is all a drama about Justin Trudeau as far as Justin Trudeau is concerned. You all know I'm a fighter. It's like, actually, Justin, at the moment, we don't give a damn if you're a fighter. Actually, we don't give a damn about you, period. This isn't about you. It's about the fact that over 9 years, you have moved Canadians from parity in terms of per capita GDP. We were equal to the Americans 9 years ago, equal.
There it is.
I mean, that is really how you measure a lot of these things, Joe, is say, the old line, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Per capita. Remember, Canada does not have as large an economy as we do. But per capita, they're right there with us. That means the Canadian people, when they have an unobtrusive government, will enjoy the benefits and the fruits of their own hard work. Okay. Now, again, that's not because we're perfect and they're not, or that's not the case. There's a lot. Part of the reason why Trump and Elon and Vivek got to get in there is so that we could thrive even more. But yes, 60%. Joe, that means if you were making $100,000 a year as a Canadian in Canadian dollars, you're basically you have the equivalent of 60 now. And this guy's crying about leaving. Listen, dude, you're lucky you're leaving because push comes to shove, the Canadian people, they'll pull a friggin' French Revolution on you and put your head right in the guillotine.
Dude, I'll be truthful with you. This is like the delusion that many people are living in. We've said this on the show a million times. Look in your refrigerator. Look at your checkbook. And they're telling you something else. Dude, it's like watching The Twilight Zone.
Right.
Joe, I'm like, that's not a lie, what he just said. The middle class got destroyed under Justin Trudeau. And Joe Biden destroyed people. I'll use two examples. In New Jersey, my car insurance. Now, I drive a 20-year-old Toyota and a 14-year-old minivan. Those are the two cars that we have. Went up, no accidents, $44 a month. Car insurance went up $44 a month. My grocery bill easily went up 20 to 30%.
Right.
Joe, that's a lot of money.
Right.
That's a lot of money. I'm not, and this is, again, I'm not making this up. Right. And they keep deflecting. Keep this in mind, speaking specifically from an American's perspective. They have controlled power for 12 out of 16 years. You own it. You own it. No one else does.
Well, that's like Justin Trudeau also, because how long's he been in power? We said 9 years.
9.
Okay. Canada's in the shape it's in, directly at his feet. Okay. It's directly at his feet. If you're just joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe, we're on Canada right now. We want to play also a clip from Pierre Poilievre, who's going to remind people, Joe, that the Liberal MPs, just like the Democrats in our Congress, they let Justin Trudeau get away with this. Well, we're going to talk about a lot tonight. We got Speaker Mike Johnson. We got a supposedly a mute mayor of L.A.
Oh, that's another.
I don't know how the place burns down, and you don't have crap to say.
Dude, she was in Africa, Joe.
What's that?
She was in Africa at in Ghana at some like administrative event. And then like to be honest with you, she also cut the firemen's budget by $17 million.
And she's got nothing to say. And we're going to get into that. We're going to also get into Zuckerberg. And that's going to be a really good conversation. I mean, we're going to be interested in what all y'all have to say in the comment box, because I happen to be well, how about this? We'll save it on Zuckerberg, but let's get back to Canada for a moment, right? But we're going a lot of places tonight, especially we're going to watch Joy Reid crying. Not literally, but moaning.
Well, that's another
that always warms the cockles of our hearts. But here's Pierre Poilievre, Joe.
Good day. Canadians desperate to turn the page on this dark chapter in our history might be relieved today that Justin Trudeau is finally leaving. But what has really changed? Every Liberal MP in power today and every potential Liberal leadership contender fighting for the top job helped Justin Trudeau break the country over the last 9 years. All Liberal politicians actively worked to pass into law the job-killing inflationary carbon tax. a tax that Carbon Tax Carney endorsed in his book. All supported a law quadrupling the tax over the next 5 years. All voted for or actively supported Trudeau's out-of-control spending, debt, and immigration. All passed Trudeau's housing policies that doubled the cost of homes. All Liberal politicians helped pass catch-and-release bail and house arrest for the most rampant reoffenders, policies that increased violent crime 50%, gun crime 116%, and hate crime by 250%. So given that Liberal MPs and leadership contenders unanimously supported everything Trudeau has done, why dump him now, right before an election? Have they had a change of heart? Is it because they feel guilty that they doubled housing costs, hiked taxes, unleashed crime, broke immigration, forced a quarter of the population into poverty? No. They continued supporting Trudeau when he did all of those things. No, their only objection is that he is no longer.
And that's the truth. That's the truth. They have to back off from him because they know he's a stone cold loser. And speaking of elections, I'm gonna keep reiterating the same thing. And now, for those of us watching on Facebook, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, we can say a lot more things on Facebook, evidently. And we'll talk about Mark Zuckerberg, and we'll talk about how Facebook is opening up, right? So, Joe, there's a lot of possibilities, and they're changing the algorithm. So, Joe and I feel like we're not going to be as suppressed as we've been. And I could back that up with numbers. But anyway, they backed this guy. And the thing is, you know what? I don't know. See, here's really the part of me. I'm going to go back to election integrity and everything else. Joe, Pierre Poilievre just said that Justin Trudeau's policies drove 25%.
I was just going to go. You read my mind. That's what I was.
You're going to convince me that he was actually elected the last time that they held an election? I'm sorry. I don't believe it. Canada needs its own version of too big to rig.
1 in 4 people. Joe, that's nuts. This is Canada. This is not Tanzania. I mean, like, it's, again, America, pay attention. Pay attention.
Joe, you ever been to Niagara Falls? You ever been that area?
I have not.
All right, I've been up there many times. All right, so Niagara Falls, St. Catharines. I've been to Toronto or past Toronto a couple of times. One of my cousins went living north of Toronto. Joe, it looks like a United States suburb. It looks like a suburb in Jersey, Pennsylvania. It's obviously very rural in spots. Okay, looks just like us. People talk our language, and yet like this, under the thumb of a real piece of garbage like Justin Trudeau.
Well, again, lesson learned for Americans. And I'll tell you what, we dodged a bullet, because I'll tell you, if Harris would have became the president, Joe, it would have been Biden on steroids. It would have been Biden on steroids. And I'll tell you this, I say this all the time, any middle-class person that votes for any politician, Republican or Democrat, that embraces globalism, dude, you should have your head examined. You should have, listen, we could disagree on a lot of things. There's some things that are common to all people, like eating, like having heat. We've listened to clips that have come out of the UK. They're rationing heat. I'm not making this up. And this is the sick thing. People will listen to that and they'll call it propaganda.
Right.
They'll be like, that's not true. I've literally heard people say things like that.
Well, go down to the Fry's and go see the cost of milk and the cost of eggs. Go look down. So if it's propaganda, or is it propaganda to point it out, Joe? Is that their beef?
Well, I don't. No, you're a jerk if you point it out.
Right.
Again, I'm telling you my experience. My car insurance went up $44 a month. That's almost
$500 a year.
Bro, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. Food. These are things we all could agree upon. And when you rationalize that away, you're not living in reality. I would even say you're not an adult. That's not adult behavior. to be
No,
honest with you.
it's not adult behavior. And let me tell you something. One of the things that's impressing me a little bit more about DJT this time around, okay, and we're going to stay on Canada, but pivot a little bit to Donald Trump here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Please, wherever you're watching this, particularly on Facebook, share it wherever you can. Like, subscribe to the front line with Joe and Joe. Help us out a little bit if you like our conversations. But Donald Trump, this iteration of Donald Trump, I firmly believe is a lot more humble. I'm listening to him the way he's talking to people. This ain't the first 4 years, Joe. There's a distinct difference. I want to play a clip.
The leader of the Conservative Party in Canada said, under no circumstance will it ever be the 51st state.
Maybe he won't win, but maybe he will. I don't care.
You had suggested
Listen, I don't care what he says.
But Sir Lopez, you said you were considering military force to acquire Panama and Greenland. Are you also considering military force to annex and acquire Canada?
No, economic force, because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like, and it would also be much better for national security. Don't forget, we basically protect Canada. But here's the problem with Canada. So many friends up there. I love the Canadian people. They're great. But we're spending hundreds of billions a year to protect it. We're spending hundreds of billions a year to take care of Canada. We lose in trade deficits. We're losing massive. We don't need their cars. You know, they make 20% of our cars. We don't need that. I'd rather make them in Detroit. We don't need the cars. We don't need their lumber. We have massive fields of lumber. We don't need their lumber. We have to unrestrict them because stupid people put, restrictions on, but I can do that with an executive order. We don't need anything they have. We don't need their dairy products. We have more than they have. We don't need anything. So why are we losing $200 billion a year and more to protect Canada? And I said that to, as I called him, Governor Trudeau. I said, listen, what would happen if we didn't subsidize you, if we didn't, because we give them a lot of money. We help them. As an example, we're buying icebreakers, and Canada wants to join us in the buying of icebreakers. I said, we don't really want to have a partner in the buying of icebreakers. We don't need a partner. But no right. Nope. No right.
So we already played that clip of Trudeau. You see how calm he is, though? Do you see how matter of fact he is? He's not dropping bombs. He didn't call Trudeau names, okay? He didn't berate the Canadian people in any way, but he basically said, we don't need you, but yet we're losing $200 billion a year because you don't have an army or a military to speak of. You know what would happen if they lost that $200 billion a year, Joe? They become a province of the Chinese Communist Party. That's what would happen to Canada, okay? That's what they need protection from. So the Canadian people better get it through their head. Yeah, you need the United States. If not, you're going to have to start pouring all that money that you get from the government in Ottawa. You better start pouring that into a military that can actually do some fighting and defend your country. Donald Trump's right. He's right. The Canadians need us more than we need them.
Well, what I would say is this. From what I've heard, it's not a very popular idea amongst the Canadian people, and that's fair. They're Canadian and they're proud of it, and that's a good thing. I do like the idea of having an open border, a common passport. You could work similar to the EU. It's mutual help. We can call it assistance. You basically, you make it easier to kind of work across the line. It's a closer relationship that would be beneficial to both countries. We should be partners. We share the same continent. We have the same, if you ask me, mindset. And we should do that. I think that would make for a stronger North America. And at the end of the day, the Canadians maintain their identity. We maintain our identity. And I think it would be good for everybody.
I'm not going to say that it would or it wouldn't. Here's the thing. It's more, in my heart, I know that it's more complex than that. Because here's the thing, too. If you have a border where people can flow back and forth freely, Joe, right? Well, you're going to have to make sure that their immigration system is sound. Because if they're letting people in that shouldn't be in Canada and they could freely cross the border, like my whole point is you're a control guy. You have to have controls in place to make sure who's crossing the border back and forth. And in which case, like I said, I'm totally down with it. Like Canada to me, I guess just, not in reality, but to me, it's always been like almost the 51st state. We do business with them. We have a common language. We're very familiar with their culture. They're very familiar with ours because they're not so dissimilar. Okay. So to me, like I would meet personally. I said this last week on the show at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe, borders have changed throughout human history. What's the difference if the Alaskan border with Canada went away and our northern border with Canada went away, and all their provinces you make into states with representatives in Washington, and make it one big economic powerhouse? Me personally, I wouldn't have a problem with it. If the Canadians do, like you said, I understand it, but if it ultimately redounds to their benefit, okay, namely protection, all right, national security, which I'm sorry, Justin Trudeau, being the oligarch that he is, wrecked that idea, then maybe they should consider it. I don't think it would be a bad idea. I really don't.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, if they got another round of liberal leadership, it could happen out of necessity. Keep that in mind. Look at what Justin Trudeau did in 9 years. Picture they get another 4. Picture they get another 9 of the same type of globalist mentality that basically decimates the people. Listen, you will find in a lot of countries in the world, very, very, very poor countries vote for communism. Why? Because they offer them basically a bag of rice and beans, because it's just about eating. This is basic stuff. All things are forgotten about when you can't eat. I'm telling you that right now. Only the extremely principled, and that is a very small percentage of a population. When you can't eat, when you don't have basics like heat in your house, basics, you'll vote for anything. If I'm going to give you 100-pound sack of rice a month, you'll vote for me, and then I'll do anything I want. And that is, by the way, the strategy of the globalists. They throw you these carrots, and then they do whatever they want. Because again, it's not about what you want. It's about the ideology. And that is exactly what has gone on right in front of our eyes. And then they tell you that you're okay. That's the crazy part. No, when we listened to that interview with Don Lemon on the Atlantic City Boardwalk, he's like, "Why? Who are you voting for?" "I'm voting for Donald Trump." The guy's like, "Why?" Because of inflation. He looks at him square in the face. This is a guy that makes millions of dollars. There is no inflation.
Right.
Like, what are you talking about?
What are you talking about? I watch the market every day. That's all they talk about is inflation, Don. You're supposed to be more informed than we are. That's all CNBC talks about. That's all they've been talking about for the last 4 years is inflation, especially if you watch Bloomberg or Fox Business or CNBC. They have to talk about inflation. Why? Because it's too damn friggin' high. Why? Because Joe Biden caused it, not Donald Trump.
But then they'll rationalize it. And then I've heard that conversation. It's the companies that are doing it. Wrong.
No, wrong.
Exactly, Joe. Now, maybe the companies are leveraging what the damage that Joe Biden did because he cut off oil and gas, which hurt the supply chain, and he printed money, and he gave tons of money out that basically we didn't have. And basically, that's why we have inflation, but they will not acknowledge it. And this, meanwhile, they're starving.
Okay, let me throw this over to you, okay? You made a very good point. They won't acknowledge it. Here's my response, and then I want to play you and everybody out there joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe. I want to play a clip. We do have about 100 right now watching. Thanks, guys. And a whole bunch of people in the chat room. They won't acknowledge it. Why, Joe? Because for decades and decades, they're able to not acknowledge it because they've controlled the media. So what happens? Why is Elon Musk the word? He's Satan, basically, in their eyes now, Elon Musk. Why? Because he took over a $44 billion company known as Twitter, turned it into X, fired 80% of the people, and now X is going to become a powerhouse. Well, a company that already has more than $1 trillion market cap is Facebook. Okay, Meta, if you want to call it Meta by its proper business name. So Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, okay, has been notorious going back however many years, poured $400 million into Philadelphia, or a lot of people said that was election interference, puts the clamp down on voices like ours and many, 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 many people, other people out there, right? You said Don Lemon wouldn't acknowledge that because they've owned the media. Well, recently, this happened.
I think he's got a good heart, but a very weak spine. So when pressure was applied to Facebook, he crumbled to preserve the business interests of Facebook. But this has been a huge week. Not only was Dana White added to the board of directors of Facebook, you had Nick Clegg, who was the global head of policy for Facebook, stepping down just 2 days ago. Nick Clegg was the former deputy UK prime minister. He was the one who wrote How to Stop Brexit after Brexit had already happened and was telling people to join en masse Keir Starmer's UK Labour Party, which is now arresting thousands and thousands of people in the UK. That was the man in control of speech policies at Facebook until just 2 days ago, and he has been replaced by somebody who is much more enthusiastic about free speech. So we're seeing, as personnel as policy, the personnel at Facebook is becoming more and more free speech, and now we see some institutional changes. The chopping up of the fact-checking arm of Facebook means all of the jobs of the fact-checkers are going in the waste paper bin, which means the market cap size of the censorship industry is going to be decimated. Because remember, Meta is not just Facebook. It's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's WhatsApp, it's Threads. It is a platform empire, and these changes are system-wide. Then you have the removal of restrictions. I'm talking about immigration and gender issues, which are major cultural vectors. You have the removal of throttling for so-called political speech, which never really meant political speech. It only really meant conservative speech. So everything's happening all.
Very interesting. Now, here's the thing. That gentleman, he's going to say that Mark Zuckerberg's crumbling. Crumbling to what? Facebook, Meta. Joe, last time I checked, their market capitalization was, at least last time, it was well over $1 trillion, okay? He's not crumbling to anything. I said this before on the show. I don't know the guy's heart, but my guess is this. He admires Elon Musk, in my view. I think he admires Elon Musk. I think he admires what Elon Musk is doing in terms of free speech and opening up X, not like that mutant Dorsey when he ran Twitter, okay, and putting the clamp down, and you're deplatformed, and we took your tweet down, and you're detweeted, and all that stuff, and Elon Musk has created a true, what do you call it, Village Square, if you were town hall, okay. Now, Facebook is well beyond that because they have a lot more features than X does, okay? But as far as the free speech aspect, I think that Zuckerberg did it, number one, because I think he admires Elon Musk, and I think he's more swayed by Elon Musk's actions than his former liberal handlers, number one. Number two, Joe, he's got to also compete with X. Now, as X grows, that could bring Meta's market cap down significantly as X grows, where people saying, we're inclined to do it. I mean, before I heard about this, I'm inclined to say, screw Facebook. Wherever it goes, but we're not going to promote on Facebook. Okay. Now I'm more inclined to promote on Facebook, maybe even spend a few dollars as the front line with Joe and Joe on Facebook. So there is the competitive aspect to it also. He may feel the need to be able to go out there and boast to the American people and to the world, say, we are a free speech platform, just like X.
Well, keep this in mind, and I've heard him say this in interviews. During the last election cycle, the federal government put the squeeze on Facebook. I don't necessarily think his politics are more in line with Joe Biden's. With that said, though, they did, and he said it. They basically put the squeeze to him, and he basically had no choice, in a sense. His business model was going to get hurt. They put the squeeze to him, and frankly, that's what resulted in Joe Biden's victory. Many, many, many people have said that if that laptop story was actually aired in its entirety, they would not have voted. That's a fact. So that's number one. But this is my view. I like to think that he is good intentioned. I think he's an opportunist, just like Bezos with the Washington Post, just like CNN by putting in that one dude that's always, was it Jennings?
Scott Jennings, yeah.
They see the writing on the wall. Power has shifted. And that should be something that people should pay attention to. All the virtue signaling that we have received in the last, say, 4 years, all these causes that corporate America, from banking to Hollywood to football to all of it, it's nothing more than a mirage. The minute the bottom line is affected, and I actually think that Donald Trump, and he knows it because he's now the president, can do damage to Facebook, and it's in his interest. That's what I think. It's purely a business decision. He's like, look, I made an enemy of now the most powerful man in the world who can come at me and cause all types of trouble. So guess what? I'm going to capitulate, because guess what? And what's important to me? Money. And
But here's
that's
the thing:
what I
if
think.
his Joe, if his profit motive is operating here, if, as I said, that he's concerned that Elon, the value, the market capitalization of X is going to go up, and threatening Facebook's market capitalization to come down, at least as far as Facebook's business of being ostensibly a town hall. Again, they offer other business services and things like that. I'm leaving that part of it aside. But Facebook, if in fact Zuckerberg is motivated by profit here, Joe, to me, I'm going to throw it right back to you. And then I got to play that Disgraziat Joy Reid. I'm going to throw it right back to you. To me, that's capitalism at work. That's free market at work. Why? Because if Zuckerberg does this, who does it benefit? It probably will benefit him as far as him pursuing, making sure that X doesn't grow too far past him or even catch up to him. But Joe, it benefits us.
Well, no, that you're right. I would agree with you 100%.
Competition is supposed to do, Joe. Competition is supposed to benefit the consumer. Well, guess what? This is competition. So if Zuckerberg's motivated by dollars, guess who it's benefiting?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, it's also, and this is why we're going to see Joy Reid crumble, because she knows it. This is devastating. Why the institution of that is America Inc. Why the globalists have power is because they control the messaging. It comes right down to that. You don't have to have a PhD. You don't have to be highly educated. You just simply have to hear the truth.
Right.
You have to hear facts. It's not propaganda. You have to hear why your insurance went up. You have to hear why they're censoring people. You have to know they're arresting people in the UK. You have to know that they froze bank accounts in Canada. You have to know what the effect of stopping oil and gas had on a country. When you know that, you're not going to support it. There are true believers that will rationalize it and compartmentalize it. And sadly, that is a shame. But the regular man, and we saw that with the Trump election, they told you one thing, you knew better. You knew that you couldn't pay for food, that you couldn't put gas in your car because you're doing it. They told you one thing, you're like, whatever. And that's why Donald Trump won.
Right.
Period. End of story. That is why Donald Trump won. Two things: the economy and the border.
Well, Joe, here's the thing. These media personalities, okay, the one thing they need to get through their head is you're not getting anywhere. If you think you're getting somewhere by calling people racist, fascist, misogynistic, deplorable, and all these names that you call people, if you think that might be good for your liberal, leftist, sycophantic audience, but moderate people, moderate Democrats who might watch,
Most people are like regular Americans. They're not.
Yeah, regular Americans see that and they say, well, you're not really arguing a point. You're just saying that a person who has an opposing point of view is all these, call it basket of deplorables. Okay. So you're called all these names. No one is more notorious for that than Joy Reid.
Why would conservatives think fact-checking is biased against them? I mean, what are you sharing if you keep getting fact-checked for false information? Think about it. What were conservatives sharing on Meta that was getting flagged so much? Are they spreading false information? And why were they so eager? And why are Republicans in general so eager to end the idea of fact-checking? What are they trying to share? What is the motivation for not?
The motivation is that the fact checkers, okay, show themselves to be not fact checking. Let me give you a case in point. The 2020 election in America was stolen because I have eyes that I could see and I understand probability and statistics. And I saw what happened in Michigan. And when I say that, at the very least, even if I'm stone cold wrong, Joe, okay, the bottom line is if you have an issue with it and I post that on Facebook, Meta, okay, then argue with it. Argue with it. Don't get your fact-checking German shepherds to come and bite my neck off because I'm making a point in a society that supposedly values free speech. If I said something wrong, I said it wrong. So your fact-checkers, Joy, are biased. Here's another fact that got fact-checked off of Facebook. The vaccines don't work, okay? They don't work. That a lot of what happened during COVID were a bunch of lies that your fact checker said we couldn't point out those lies. That's what we're concerned about, Joy Reid. That you, Joy Reid, call people racist without any sort of evidence for that whatsoever, other than the fact that they disagree with you on policy and politics, and that's why you call them a racist because you're a black woman. And you want your fact checkers to go and make sure they get the facts to show everybody that that person's actually a racist when they're not. No, because they're never fair, Joy. They're not looking for facts. They're looking for your slant and your liberal spin on the facts.
Well, how about this?
Go ahead,
Why do adults need to be fact checked?
You don't. That's the larger point. You don't.
I mean, like, in all honesty, I'm an adult and I could differentiate from truth and facts. I could look things up. We have the internet. We have so many sources. This isn't 30 years ago from like a newspaper where like you read something and you got to go to like some librarian and go through the Dewey Decimal System and find microfiche. This is not that time. And there's so many different sources out there. If you want to get information, there's so many X, Facebook, look things up on Google, listen to academics, listen to interviews. There's so many sources. And frankly, that's what people should be doing. I tell this guy at work all the time, shut off the news, Fox and MSNBC and CNN. There are so many voices out there, intelligent people, that you could get so much information. And that is how I fact check.
Well,
I don't need you to do it for me. I'm an adult.
X does a great job. I like the way X does it. If you see something posted, somebody will post reader context. Okay. Now, they won't take down the post, but they'll post, and it won't come up with a warning either. Right underneath your post, let's say you and I posted something, and a fact-checking citizen wants to give a reader's context. I think I'm calling that right. They could offer something right there, right below in the comments, but it's highlighted where it says, actually, that didn't happen, blah, blah, blah. And that could start a whole other conversation. See, if you want to do that, that to me is proper because somebody out there in the ether, okay, has actually watched your post. They think you're wrong and that you were mistaken in your facts, and they add context to it. All right. That's different from having some 22-year-old little girl who just graduated from Harvard in gender studies, a master's in gender studies, that can't get a real job. That's all she knows is she hates anybody who disagrees with her, with the left. And she's going to sit there and say, look at these two gorillas from New Jersey. I think what they said is wrong. We're going to take it down. And I have a whole bunch of general categories that I could slap on there to say why we took it down. But underneath it all, it's because you were fact-checked. Okay, there's no such thing, Joy Reid, as fact-checking. It's called debate. It's called open and honest questions and answers. That's what's supposed to happen during presidential elections, political elections. That's supposed to happen in social media. It's called debate, whether it's high debate or low debate. It's an exchange of ideas. So tell your fact-checkers to go get a real job, because they ain't working for Mark Zuckerberg anymore.
The difference between Mark Zuckerberg and how he basically prevented Donald Trump from being the president is he suppressed information. And people are trying to say that Elon Musk is tilting the scale. Well, he may be tilting the scale, but how he's doing it is he's allowing a flow of information. And if that tilts the scale, that is a good thing.
Right.
You see, that's what they can't connect because
Right.
it's not in their favor. The scale was tilted because information was being blocked. Information was being influenced by basically the administrative state, by the advertisers. Do you think Big Pharma that spends tons of money on Fox, on CNN, is going to basically permit their pundits to cut down the vaccine that they made billions and billions of dollars upon? Never. That commercial is ended. And that means that executive producer gives a call to the producer on that show and says, you tell Jake Tapper to zip it.
Right.
And that's how it works.
Yeah, well, here,
and
let me give
that's
you an
what's
example.
been going on for decades
No,
in America.
absolutely, Joe. Absolutely. I'm going to give you an example of what I was just talking about, right? By the way, Railroaded is in the chat room. Welcome, Railroaded, to the front line with Joe and Joe. Community notes. That's what X does. Okay. You have community notes and you have context. So those are good things. But I just put up something that, now this is the perfect example. Marianne, I hope you're still with us. So Marianne, Joe, is in the comment box. She said, the moment the guy with the glasses, Joe, I think she was talking about me. I'm just throwing that out there. Said that the 2020 election was stolen and that the COVID vaccine doesn't work, disqualifies anything else he may say. Now, she's telling me I'm wrong, right? She is in the audience and she's fact-checking me. She's questioning whether or not the veracity of what I might say based on the fact that she disagrees with what I said as far as the election and COVID. And here's my point. Fine. There's my fact check. Now, if Teresa or Mary or anybody else or Carabene or anybody else, Science Girl, if anybody wants to argue with Marianne, they could go and do that in social media and they can have an exchange over there. You see, that's the proper way to go about it. A citizen said she disagrees with what I said, thinks I'm not being factual. That's what Joy Reid can't get through her head. See, that's an actual exchange.
Because it's about power, Joe.
Oh, no, I know that. Go ahead.
That's what people don't see. It's not in my advantage. You see, it has nothing to do with equity. It has everything to do with her and her group. And that is what it's about. It has nothing to do with justice. It has nothing to do with equity. If it doesn't work for you, like Elon Musk permitting an open platform, it's biased, it's hateful, it's misinformation, it's malinformation. Wrong. It's information. And all information should be open because we're all adults and we should be able to say, I want to listen to this. I don't want to listen to this. I'm going to look into this. I don't think that's right. That's for me to decide. That's what makes a nation free. And when you stop that, you're not a democracy. You're not a free nation. Your people aren't free. And the government is a totalitarian regime. And that is the truth.
Listen, couldn't have said it better myself. And that's one of the reasons why I'm going to say for the record right now, until we see maybe the next shoe drop or maybe it doesn't drop, I'm going to give Zuckerberg the credit. I think it was a business decision. I also think he's got an admiration for Elon Musk and what he's doing at X. And I think Zuckerberg wants to be a part of that game. And either motivation for me or both combined are just fine. I hope I'm right. I hope I'm right. And I hope that Facebook will attract a lot of people. You and I are never going to neglect X because we respect Elon Musk so much. But that doesn't mean I won't throw Mark Zuckerberg some business too. Okay, if in fact he's going to be fair. And let's hope that he is. Now, speaking of totalitarian regimes, all right, and what we could potentially do about it. Now, let me go on record as saying, Joe, right now, I'm not the biggest fan of Mike Johnson. Okay, I just want to throw that out there. But let's run the clip.
And as heirs to the American Revolution and the descendants of patriots who defied tyranny, in the coming months, we are going to pass legislation to roll back the totalitarian fourth branch of government known as the administrative state. We're going to drastically cut back the size and scope of government. We're going to return the power back to the people. And in coordination with President Trump and his administration, we are going to create a leaner, faster, and more efficient federal workforce. We need to do that. Our people do not deserve to be ruled by millions of bureaucrats they've never voted for, never met, and can never hold accountable. They deserve a government that is led by those they've elected to lead. That is how Article 1 is supposed to work. That was the idea of the Congress, and we will return to that principle. The American people have called on us to reject business as usual and throw out the status quo.
Just let me just start this out. Like, he's saying all the right things. How isn't every single person in that room cheering?
Because they're not.
They're not American, Joe. That's why. Because everything he said is what this country was founded on. Take Donald Trump out of the equation. Pretend it's not Donald Trump. He didn't mention Donald Trump. Everything that he just said is everything this country was founded on. People should have been standing on the table, and they're not.
Right.
That should tell you something right off the bat. Right off the bat.
Well, the thing is, if you look at, I alluded earlier to the interview that Ned Ryan did with Tucker Carlson, right? And Ned pointed out something that we said on this show. Obviously, you and I and many in our audience were focusing on what the Supreme Court was going to do about Roe versus Wade. But I said, but what's being overlooked, and on a different level than Roe versus Wade, because Roe versus Wade is obviously a moral issue. Was being overlooked is the Chevron deference decision, okay? And that along, if Speaker Johnson is being sincere, okay, if he's being sincere, I at the moment don't know, the jury's out in my mind about whether he is or not, but let's say he's being sincere. Joe, the Chevron deference decision and Trump and Elon Musk and Vivek going in there and somebody like Ned Ryan said, the person you appoint to be the head of a particular agency cannot go in there on day one and say, things are going to be great. We're going to streamline things. We're going to be more effective. No, the person going in there has to say, I'm here to systematically or methodically dismantle this agency. You see, those are the big things. And the Supreme Court did open this up because of their ruling in the Chevron deference case and overturning that. Bureaucrats can't make law anymore. You know who's got to actually make laws, Joe? Guys
Congress.
like Mike Johnson. Congress got to make laws.
I'll be honest with you. Even to insinuate that that's going on, if you ask me, people should go to prison.
No, Joe. No, Joe. We've had Chevron deference for 40 years.
But this is my point. Like, even to insinuate and say that publicly, that is the case, people should be in jail. That is so anti-American.
But why was not one Democrat standing up and
this is my point, that it has nothing to do with Donald Trump. And you don't like the country. You don't like the country. And why you don't like that is because it benefits you. It has, again, nothing to do with the people. Just like the fight against Donald Trump had nothing to do with the people that were voting for Joe Biden. It had everything to do with Donald Trump threatened them, as in the establishment, the power structure, the administrative state, the Leviathan, call it whatever you want, the blob. He threatened them. It had nothing to do with you, the person who's sitting in the chair watching Joy Reid, eating frigging pork rinds and drinking Mountain Dew. It has nothing to do with you.
Be charitable. Be charitable.
It has nothing to do with you. And this is the truth.
Well, the thing is, I hope the American people were watching that and they understand. See, Mike Johnson said to go after or dismantle the administrative state, and not one Democrat got up. Don't worry. There's a few Republicans that would not have gotten up either. Okay. And that's going to be something Trump's going to have to navigate when it comes to more moderate Republicans in the House of Representatives. That's my understanding. And what I've heard, not just from Ned Ryan and Tucker Carlson, but others, is that that's the problem that Trump has. Trump's got all the right ideas and a 2-seat majority in the House, many of whom are people who you're really going to have to convince, and you're going to really have to do something for them to go along completely with this agenda. But I'm with you. I think if you think that an unelected bureaucrat, Yeah, that is a naughty, naughty phrase. Unelected bureaucrat. Those are dirty words. Okay. Why? Because that means that those people do things that I never asked them to do, nor did the person who agrees with them ask them to do. Voters are supposed to vote for the members of the House and Senate, and they're supposed to vote on this stuff. I don't know why in 2025, Joe, we have to go through Civics 101. I really
No,
don't.
Joe, 100%. I mean, these are people, all those people are supposed to be educated people. Every single one of them should have been standing on the chair. He's saying all the right things. Why is he in that position? If you ask me, I believe Donald Trump thinks he can control him. I honestly believe that. I think that, in all honesty, and this guy, I think, likes his job, and he'll do what Donald Trump says, because I believe that's the only reason why he has that job is in Donald Trump's mind. I can control him. That man will do anything. Look at all the crap that he voted for under Biden. He's another one. As far as character goes, either he has none, or based on his actions, or the machine is much bigger than the man and he likes his job, so he just goes along to get along. Either way, that's not the right person. But what may be the problem isn't the person, it's the machine. The machine has to get ripped down and built up from scratch. That's why the people voted for Donald Trump. That's why I voted for him. And that's what needs to be done.
I agree. I would tell you this, though. We always talk about the long march through the institutions and how very patient and methodical and deliberate the left is. And really that they built this administrative state over what? The last, say, 100 years or so?
It's about 100 years. You could go all the way back to like FDR. I mean, in all honesty.
But they had to do it by instilling fear in people. There's a lot of people that say the Great Depression never had to happen. A lot of that was exacerbated by government action. And a lot of things. What I would say is this, but they have to do things clandestinely, because to get the things they want, they can never do it all at once.
100%.
Here's my point, though. With this particular revolution that's going on now, we don't have to wait 100 years. Trump comes in like a tsunami on day one. He's already said, I was having a conversation with one of my buddies at work today. He comes in like a tsunami on day one. Joe, you think this guy's going to be sitting back waiting for people to move forward when he gets in there on day one? Joe, you could potentially see 100 actions on day one.
Yeah, but here's the thing, and that's what that gentleman Ryan with Tucker today, that interview you referenced. I listened to a little bit of it. Joe, they're going to fight like hell.
No, but but Trump has the executive branch.
No, I know that, but that's where, as much as, even if they have to kill him, and I still have that on the table. You're talking about power. And I've said this a million times. Power is never given. Power is taken.
But isn't Trump taking it, or at least
he did, but it's still not done, because he's made steps, but the real fight is about to take place, and don't think they're going to roll over. That is why they don't want Tulsi Gabbard. That is why they don't want RFK. It has nothing to do with the bull crap that they're saying. RFK is crazy. Tulsi Gabbard is a foreign agent. No, it has everything to do with Tulsi Gabbard is threatening that group of individuals. RFK is threatening the lobbies that fuel the machine. And they're not just going to be like, oh, okay, put him in the seat. We're going to take a beating. That's not how it works.
Right.
And that is exactly what's going on. The true fight hasn't even begun yet.
Well, that's why we always say it's going to be fun and exciting, especially for the first 100 days. But I'll tell you one place in America, Joe, not so fun and exciting right now, is the West Coast. And literally, I heard the fire, came on the other side of the Pacific Coast Highway. So it's like now it's all the way to the ocean. All right. Well, here's the mayor of Los Angeles, Joe. And when we come back, Joe, I promise you I'm going to be speechless. So you're going to have to save me.
Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today? Can you back up, appreciate it. Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster? No apology for them? Do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding back home?
What a disgrace.
She's standing there like she's waiting for the voice of God to come down and tell her what to say. And then you realize as the video plays on, she's looking out the window, hoping to God that door opens so she can get away from that guy. How do you not say anything?
Well,
how do you?
Yeah.
How?
I mean,
Joe, there are people that will call us judgmental, but the thing is, I would say to you, how do you not say anything? There's people there that you represent whose homes are burning. You cut the budget of the fire department. Don't you think you need to answer for that?
Well, how about this? Donald Trump, there's clips of this in 2019 when it was called Twitter, of him standing in front of Gavin Newsom in California after the last iteration of fires, telling him that he had to clean up the brush. He's telling him this. You can listen to it. During the election process, while he was on Joe Rogan, he's talking about the problems of forest fires in California. Go listen to it. And now it happened.
Right.
This is negligence. It's negligence. Now, I don't know how the specific fire happened, but what I'm saying is this. When you have a problem that happens a lot, there's fires in California a lot, and you don't change your behavior, and then you cut the fire department budget, just like New York cut the police department budget. Does that make sense? Right. And then you have a fire. Here's the thing. Do you, as the voter, see this? Are you okay with this? Are you going to listen to the spin and the lies and the nonsense? Are you going to hold people accountable? Like, if you ask me, if my house burned and I knew that you cut the budget, or basically someone I love gets mugged on the subway because you cut the police budget, I hold you accountable. Or you allow someone like George Soros to put in an activist DA that allows people to basically commit crimes and then walk out on the street again to commit them again. I hold you accountable. Period. End of story. I don't want to hear spin. Bringing back my loved one isn't going to happen. Getting my house back isn't going to happen. You did this because of bad, ridiculous, stupid decisions and policies and ideologies. California is a dumpster fire. And guess who's going to have to rebuild it? Me and you with our tax money. That's who. Because you don't listen. I sound like I'm talking to my kids again. You don't listen.
Hey, at least that woman had nothing to say. The mayor of Los Angeles, she had nothing to say. Gavin Newsom, he basically got on TV and he said, well, the local authorities are going to have to handle this. Excuse me? What? Like you're the governor of the state, stupid.
It's sick.
And then again, he's not stupid.
Thing. Why don't they allow water? Because that was another issue. There were certain fire hydrants. Actually, that's an interview with what's his face? Cooper on CNN, Anderson Cooper. Certain fire hydrants didn't have water. Why wasn't the brush cleaned up? It's all because of the environmental nonsense. They value the ideology over humanity. That is a fact. All globalists do. They value the ideology, I'm going to say it again, over humanity. And that is a problem. And the people who do it the most are people like Gavin Newsom, who's insulated and wealthy.
Right.
If you're not insulated and wealthy, you get steamrolled by that ideology.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. No, it's a shame. I mean, and listen, and you and I, and the people that listen to us here at the front line with Joe and Joe, we don't say it lightly or just like the way politicians use it. We're praying for obviously the people who are suffering, who are displaced out there in California. And obviously we pray that you remain safe, and somehow, some way, someone with sanity comes into that situation. Joe, I'll give you the final word on tonight, but stick around because Joe and I have a little clip at the end we're going to play for you as we go out to give you a little education on the Panama Canal. Joe, final word.
Things are looking up. You're seeing what's happening on Facebook. They're opening up their platform. You got a lot of good things to look at on X. What I would say is this: put your political identities aside, do your own research. You are an adult. You don't need anyone to fact check you. Don't just listen to mainstream media, reference mainstream media. Go to different sources. Open your mind. It's not about Donald Trump. It's about you. It's about people being informed. And I got news for you. That's the key. The key to power, the key to basically having the people have a say, once again, is for people to be informed. It's vital, and we're going in a good direction. I'll be honest with you, Joe. I hope, frankly, the ball keeps rolling.
Yeah, I think it should. I think there's definitely an appetite for it in America. We're tired of it. We're just basically, after tolerating this for a very long time, and we'll talk about it another time, the American people they did wake up in 2016, and I think they woke up even more in 2024, and they said, no, this is not the way we want to live as Americans. Anyway, thanks for joining us. Stick around. I got a nice clip for you. We got a nice clip for you. Thanks for joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe, Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello. We go away in the breach Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time, across X, Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. Wherever you're seeing this video, please help us out. Please share, like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. We do our interview shows. We also post that we do on the radio back east. And we post those all across social media. Also, if you like some good Catholic interviews, primarily Catholic, you'll like those too. So thank you once again. We love you all. Remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.
Did you know that in the past, the Panama Canal originally belonged to the United States? The Panama Canal was initially constructed by the French in the 1880s. However, due to various reasons, France failed in its efforts to complete the canal. After France's failure, the United States became interested and proposed constructing the Panama Canal. At that time, however, Panama was part of the Republic of Colombia, which rejected the U.S. proposal. When negotiations with Colombia fell through, the United States shifted its support to Panama's independence movement. In 1903, with U.S. backing, Panama declared independence from Colombia. Following this, the U.S. signed a treaty with Panama that allowed it to control a 10-mile wide zone to construct the canal. This area was considered U.S. territory. The Panama Canal was completed and became operational in 1914. In 1999, the U.S. returned the canal to Panama under the terms of a treaty. Today, Panama has no standing military, but according to the treaty, if the neutrality of the Panama Canal is threatened or compromised, the United States retains the right to intervene militarily in Panama.